What's up, Shady Sports? We're back here with another episode of Spring Football Reports. Tonight it's smaller pool of guests, but we're back at it. We'll dive right in here. So our first topic today is about how there's been 20 quarterbacks to start in the XFL, which is like a lot. So Michael, I want to go to you. What do you think about?
Well, to be completely honest with you, it's not really surprising. These spring football leagues right now really aren't established as well, and these guys are always looking for, an opportunity. They want to show off what they have, and I think some of them are kind of in the process of still trying to figure out who they are as quarterbacks without a full offseason. Like a lot of the guys that we know are former NFL, camp bodies, and they have 2 to 2.5 months of camp, whereas the XFL only has a month. So I think we're seeing a lot of inconsistent play, and there's obviously been some injuries involved there too. Some players coming and going. Kyle Sloter was unhappy in Arlington, that situation. Luis Perez got traded, Brett Hundley, and then they were like, well, we're going to go ahead and see what we have with Jalen McClendon. So I think that the three quarterback system is working for the XFL. I think that's what this is showing, is that, uh, even though you might be the third quarterback on a roster to start off the year, it still gives you an opportunity and chance that you may still see some action down the road. And my only message to these guys would be just prepare and attack every week like you're going to start, regardless if you know for sure you're not. Just attack that week like you're going to start. It's kind of that Geno Smith mentality with Seattle.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. I mean, I think every guy should get an opportunity. I think we see with Jalen McClendon, he turned out to be one of the top quarterbacks in the league. And we see a similar situation in the USFL with the Michigan Panthers, where they have three guys that can start any given week. So I feel like, having different guys in there is a good thing for the league, and it shows progress. So the next thing is it's obviously overtime was a big deal this week. We had two overtime games. What were your thoughts about the new overtime format?
Well, I loved it. This was more of a. I think that seeing these overtime rules finally going into effect, because I think it was like what 48 games or something like that played total between 2020 and 2023 to finally get these overtime, rules in effect. And the overtime rules are harder to get to in the XFL because of the wide variety of points you can go for. Like you can go for one, two, or three. There's no kicking extra points in this league. So unlike the NFL where it's pretty the basic and you'd have to go for two, like overall it's you kick an extra point and go to overtime, and that's just the way it is. You don't risk losing the game. Here you could be like, well, let's see, go for two here, and then that forces the team to go for three, if they want to win, stuff like that. So um I was actually shocked that we got two games in one weekend. That was actually more shocking to me than it was anything else. But I love the rules, and I think that they're onto something as far as this overtime, process is concerned. A lot of that's college football because it's definitely based a little bit off the college football aspect of it. But the fact that it's limited to basically three attempts is, unless there's like an actual tie, it doesn't go into like a, an extra overtime. It doesn't just keep going like sometimes you see with the college football side of things. So I enjoyed it a lot, and I hope the NFL is paying attention.
100%. I mean, I think the overtime rules is my favorite thing with the XFL.
Yeah.
It was exciting. It was kind of like hockey with the shootouts, but it just made it go by so much faster, and it was action packed. Like you had to be paying attention to the TV. So I hope the NFL adopts some new rules. So our
It,
next,
it, well, I mean, the other thing too, Chris, real quick, is it didn't uh it didn't prolong the game. Like the NFL right now with their overtime rules, you go through an entire quarter before you may get to a certain point. Like this was literally just like, we'll put the ball in the team's hands and let them alternate back and forth. So while it extended overtime, you didn't have to sit through an entire quarter, before you got a winner out of the deal, or, a sudden death type situation. Because, sometimes that sudden death doesn't happen and you end up going another 10 minutes of overtime. And I think that that's probably just more realistically thinking for football. I mean, nobody wants to play 5 quarters.
Yeah,
So
yeah. No, I think it makes it so much more meaningful. And with like NFL, you see they have like TV commercials every 5 minutes with the overtime, so it's like it makes it go by, and it's like a movie. You know, when
yeah.
you're a big movie guy, so you understand like. When you see a 2 hour and 30 minute movie that's really good, or it's a 4 hour and 1 minute movie, that's like all right, you know, it's better to get movies that are shorter, and I think that was the whole point of the overtime rules. So I think that I don't know if they're doing that for the playoffs. I'm interested to see if that's the same format for the
I,
playoffs. Yeah,
I don't see why change it. To be honest with you, I mean the NFL has these like special overtime rules and stuff set up for the playoffs, and for me, it's just like just set up one set of overtime rules across the board. Try to cut out those ties if you can, because there's really no need for them.
definitely. No, I 100% agree with you. So our next thing is you guys' favorite segment, the "Don't Impress Me Much." Play the video right here.
That don't impress me much.
So this week is my don't impress me much is Quentin Dormady, coming off the performance that he 3 really good weeks. Let's just be completely honest. He's had 3 really good weeks. They got their first win over DC. He played lights out, and he follows this up with a chance to coming in this past week to take Orlando and move them into a possible playoff run. Instead, what we got was the Quentin Dormady that me and Travis were kind of waiting on rearing its ugly head. 5 turnovers, 2 interceptions, 3 fumbles, missing throws. He was under some pressure, so the Orlando, offensive line, which has been one of the worst in the league all year, definitely has to shoulder some of the blame for that. But they are so much more improved than where they were 4 weeks ago when he took over. So Quentin Dormady really, really, as far as a performance base was concerned, uh, kind of dropped the ball, needless to say, for the Orlando Guardians, and that just don't impress me much.
Definitely. I mean, I think Dominic sucked this week. You know, he showed nothing good. He completely went downhill. And honestly, like the NFL team that were interested in bringing him in for camp or anything, like they probably are all gone.
I,
Like
I mean, I think that he's still impressed enough for the season to maybe get a camp arm invite, but he's not going to stick on a roster. He still has a lot of work to do to get to that point. But I, it just it was just an opportunity and chance for him to really take Orlando, put him on his shoulders, and carry it to a opportunity to at least make that late playoff push, because the South is awful, and he just didn't do it, and it did not work out for him. So he just unfortunately is the butt of this segment. Orlando gets eliminated too. That was
yeah,
the biggest thing, is that loss just eliminates Orlando from contention when they had an opportunity to maybe try to sneak in. So
definitely. So our next topic is Brian Burt for Vegas, my Vegas Vipers. I'll just say Brian had an amazing game, and we're really lucky to have him. I hope we can bounce back next year with all these pieces. But personally, I think a lot of these guys, like I'll say this about Vegas, is Jalen McClendon. I think his best bet is to hop over to the USFL. Um, Hop over, find a team where you can go start at for like maybe a whole season almost, right? Get more film and try to move up. Because I think with a lot of these guys, it's good if they have more film rather than having to wait a whole year.
I don't believe that McClendon is going to be able to. I don't think any of these guys are going to be able to jump from the XFL to the USFL if they finish out the season with the XFL. Um, but Jalen McClendon, I think, it actually is right where he needs to be, and I think that he should return to Vegas next year, especially if they keep the coaching staff in place and everything else, because his improvement from where we've seen him previously is not going to be significant enough that the NFL is going to take a shot on him or look at him. So he needs some kind of stability, and he needs a staff that's going to believe in him and a staff that's going to continue to be patient with him and work with him. And I think at this particular moment in time, that's Vegas. As far as Brian Bird is concerned, I think that this is the late window for the XFL. As we all know, it's week 9 heading into the end of the season. Playoffs are around the corner. Brian Bird is the epitome of the definition of fresh legs. He really hasn't seen a lot of playing time. He's been inactive for a few weeks. He comes in, gets an opportunity and chance because let's face it, Rod Smith, as far as his name is concerned and the kind of running back he is, he's not a guy that I see with any type of longevity really in even spring football. No offense to him. He's a fairly talented guy. It's just, it doesn't work out for his running style and playing style. John Levitt has the receiving portion down, but Brian Burt kind of brings a little bit of all of that. So he gets an opportunity and chance with fresh legs, and he really showcased himself this week. So I hope that as a Vegas fan, or Vegas fans in general, that they're just a little more patient with this team, because if they can get some of these pieces to return and keep their coaching staff fairly intact, I think it's going to be a huge improvement for season 2.
I agree with you 100%. So our next thing is your favorite segment is pick 'em. So we're gonna pick the games for the week, and we want to bring on a very special guest tonight, the biggest Michigan Panthers fan on Twitter, I think, ever. His name is Jake Ball. He goes by Panther Shadow on Twitter. Jake, how you doing tonight?
Good. How about you guys?
We're doing pretty good. So let's jump right in here. We'll go to your Panthers. And the first question I have for you is, you guys have a 3-legged race at quarterback: Carson Strong, Eric Bear, and Josh Love. Talk a little bit about your quarterback situation and who you hope to see on the center on Sunday.
Oh yeah, no. So we started out the year obviously with just Barrier and Love. I kind of thought that it was going to be, kind of equal footing. Both of them had their upsides. Both of them played well when they got the chance to last year. Then, of course, we brought in Carson Strong. It seemed from that point to kind of be a 2-legged race between Strong and Love. Just last week, Coach Nolan had talked to our local Fox station that Love had obviously the knowledge of the offense, and he had that down being with us last year, and then this year Strong coming in with the stronger arms, so he had obviously the opportunity of the deep ball. So it seems like Barrier kind of gotten knocked down to kind of that safely into that third spot, and then you're left with Strong and Love being the two. And so my guess, kind of looking at it with the ascension of Strong, kind of like him being borderline first round draft pick considered before he shot his knees out, I'm leaning Strong at this point, but I wouldn't be surprised seeing Love under center, but I don't think Barrier is going to. I think he's going to be practice squad QB.
That hurts my soul so much. I love Eric Barrier. He was so great at Eastern Washington. Man. Honestly, I think the smart thing for Pitt, Michigan would be to start with Josh Love. I think it's always easier to start with the more experienced guy and switch to a guy that's more inexperienced than it is vice versa with a lot of teams. And I got to be honest with you, as a Michigan Panthers fan, are you excited about Josh Love? Because I've seen him play, and I personally wouldn't be insanely excited about him, but I mean, he has the experience, that's for sure.
I mean, he was the more accurate quarterback when he was with the Maulers before getting cut. But then coming in with the Panthers, I mean, he played well when he did. Like, I think part of the problem with his performance while with the Panthers was just the fact that he was injured. Like, you could watch, he was slinging it. He was playing really well against the Breakers, but he injured that thumb. And then through the course of the rest of the game, he just regressed into a mess. And, it ended up being, lost, a close loss out of overtime. But yeah, no, I'm confident with Love, his knowledge of it, of the offense, being able to, to have that understanding, and he has that chemistry baked in with some of the receivers, with Hyman and Walker and Ross returning. So I'm comfortable with Love. I definitely think that if we went with Barrier, I was probably going to be a little more excited. There was a little more, dynamic with the legs there, but I don't know. I'm comfortable with Love, but I would listen, I wouldn't hate seeing Barrier. And if Strong can throw the deep ball, and we can help give Reggie a little bit of breathing room. Yeah,
It
I,
is
I
such a win for Carson Strong to be in this league.
it is.
I,
yeah.
I,
I just have to throw that out there because this dude is. I watched him play in Nevada. I mean, prior to that knee injury, he was more mobile before the knee injury. I mean, he definitely lost some mobility with the knee injury, but he was a lot of fun to watch, and I was excited to see him. I thought he was going to stick on an NFL roster, but obviously the knee injury is a concern for a lot of these teams longevity wise, at least for the NFL side of things.
so I have an interesting question for you here, Jake. Is we talk about the USFL before we get into our picks for the week. The Michigan Panthers, I believe, are playing in Michigan, their home stadium. Are you located in Michigan, and will you be attending the game? And the second part of that is, how do you feel about how their home fan base is going to be? Are they going to come out and support them, or is it going to be kind of like last year?
Oh yeah. I am in Michigan. I'm kind of center of state, but I have my season tickets right there at midfield, so I'm gonna be there all 5 games. And yeah, it's from what I knew, from what it sounded like, Michigan came out strongest out of the gate with season tickets, and from what I've been watching, still pretty strong support. I mean, we don't have our first home game until week 3, so kind of little too early to know just how well will come out. But yeah, it seems like Detroit is coming out. We already have play by play, and it just seems like tickets are selling like hotcakes. I have some information from my tickets guy, and like, so yeah, no, we're looking good. We look like we can absolutely hit that 15,000 mark that Moose said he wanted to see from Michigan when we had the hub announcement back in January.
Definitely. So we'll get in right here. We'll start with USFL as always. Um, what do you got, Michael? What's the first game on tap for the USFL?
All right, so week 1 obviously starts Saturday. Game on Fox at 4:30. It is the Philadelphia Stars against the Memphis Showboats. Jake, let's start with you. You're a guest, so what are your thoughts on that game and where your predictions lie?
Well, Stars have Cookus back, and you got Coleman coming in. I got Stars on this one. I personally have the Showboats way down my list of my power rankings. Just simply, I wasn't impressed by their offseason and losing Ta'amu to the XFL. Yeah, no, I got the Stars. I don't think it's going to be terribly close.
All right, Chris, what about you, my man? Where are you going with this? What's your predictions preview for this game?
Unfortunately, you know how I feel about the Philadelphia Stars. I think they're overrated as hell, but I'm gonna pick them this game. My score prediction will probably be, so I'm a Showboats fan, so I'm kind of biased here, but I got 21-15 Stars.
So on paper, the Philadelphia Stars look like they might be the best team in the league. I'm going to throw that out there. They have a ton of talent returning, and they added a ton of talent in the offseason as well. They're one of the few teams that are returning their head coach from the year before as well, which is a huge advantage in my opinion as far as um, stability is concerned. Memphis, obviously, we know that they're basically the Tampa Bay Bandits moved up. Brady White's getting the start, which that makes sense to me. Memphis side of things, and I think they brought in Ryan Willis, right? Was it Ryan Willis they brought in?
Yeah, Ryan Wilson.
Yeah, yeah. Ryan Willis is back into this like USFL umbrella as well. I just don't know if Memphis is going to have enough, but this could be a trap game already for Philadelphia because this is, I believe, in Memphis, and it's going to be the home opener for a city that has been clamoring for a team to kind of come back to them. So it could be a trap game right off the bat, and we could see like how the NFL always has those like week 1 hanky upsets. It's possible we could see this with here. I'm still going to take the Stars. I'm going to probably say 24 to 20-ish range, but I think it's going to be closer than some people are predicting. Um, the second game of the week is at 7:30. It's the New Jersey Generals and the Birmingham Stallions. The key note about this game is according to Vegas or some sports books, these two are the co-favorites to open up to win the championship this year. So, Jake, we'll run it to you and see your thoughts on this and your prediction.
Oh, think it's going to be another good one. I don't think either team really have lost a whole lot. Obviously, well, besides Turpin, that's going to be a huge hole that the Generals are going to have to figure out how to fill. If they can do that, then they got another great team this year. Stallions are returning quite a bit of their weapons, namely Jamar and Scarborough. So they both should be able to be at least playoff teams this year. But as far as this game, I'm going to go with the North. I'm gonna be that North homer. Go with the Generals. They're going to get their revenge on the Stallions from that last minute loss last year.
That is definitely possible with these two teams. How about you, Chris? What's your thoughts on this one?
So I like the Generals. I was kind of a fan last year. I mean, I got my boy Toby Johnson down there. He's one of the best D linemen in the league. I think that the Stallions are coming hot. Obviously, they won that championship last year, but it's kind of a new group. But they did return a lot of guys: Gooby Wright, Jamar Smith, Bo Scarborough, all of them. And I think that the Stallions have the upper leg on the Generals here. So my big takeaway from this game is that the over-under is set at 39. In my opinion, that's free money. 39 points from both these teams, I can easily see that. I'm a huge DeAndre Johnson guy. I think he's really going to step into that role and become the full-time starter. I think Mike Riley might split him with him and Dakota Purpett from CFL. They might split time under center, but in my opinion, I think the Generals are going to win this game, and I'm taking them 25-18 over the Stars.
This game is going to probably be the game of the week if both these teams are in the sense of returning and in putting on the classic that they had last year. The X factor for me in this one is Bo Scarborough, because when he joined the Stallions last year, that team was a significantly different team. His ability to be able to wear down defenses and then just get stronger as the game went on made all the difference in the Stallions' run through, the rest of the league on their way to the championship. The Generals are definitely going to be a team to keep an eye on, though, I think, in the North. I think that they are a tough team across the board. DeAndre Johnson is a wonderful athlete and improved at the quarterback position as the season went on last year and got much, much better. But like you just said about Dakota, I think that the key, or what I said earlier about Josh Love in Michigan, is the key here is going with the more experienced guy to start and then maybe switching to the inexperienced guy or working an inexperienced guy in. Unfortunately for Dakota, I'm not sure we're going to see him right off the bat. I think it will probably be later in the season, barring injury, of course. I'm taking the Stallions here, and I think they're going to hit the over on this too as well. I think it's going to be 25 to 19 range as well. The third game on the docket looks like it's your Michigan Panthers, and they're on the road to Memphis to take on the Houston Gamblers. Game will be on NBC and Peacock at 12 o'clock on Sunday. Jake, you're the Michigan fan. Are we going to see a homer pick here?
Yeah, I have my reasons for it though. Both teams are huge unknowns. Like they're two of the teams, brand new head coaches. Gamblers, their strong suit was their defense last year, and they returned virtually none of the big guys. They don't get Odom, they don't have Payne, they don't have Likely, so that's their interception leader, the league leader in tackles, and league leader in sacks. Like they don't return what made them a dangerous team last year. Granted, they lost, late, but they still were in every single game. So, but they don't have those guys this year. And the Panthers kind of the same. Like we don't have any of our secondary. We don't have our starting quarterback, though. Losing Patterson and Lynch might seem like an upgrade this year, and I would be hard pressed to disagree with that. But I think having our offensive coordinator back again, having Marty back again, having some experience at quarterback, having Reggie, having our wide receivers, and some of our defensive pickups this year. I am going to go. I'm going to be a homer pick. We get to avenge our last year's loss. Yeah, I think it'll be closer than it should be, but I think we pull that off.
Chris, what are your thoughts on this game as far as two relatively unknown, question marks going into the USFL season here?
So Jake, did Marty come back to that offensive coordinator position? I thought he got the tight end role Coastal Carolina.
No, that would be Dan Carroll, and he is their co-DC linebackers coach. So it was our defensive guy that moved up to Coastal.
No, so I kind of have to agree with Jake here with the Panthers. I like Kenzie Barha. I liked him when he was in college. I think he's solid. I'm surprised, honestly, that he gets the start. I get it because he had the NFL experience, but I thought Montel Cozart was going to get an opportunity considering he was in the league last year. I think Kenzie is going to go and play pretty well. I mean, he has a receiver, T.O. Redding, is back on the squad. But other than that, they don't have the key pieces, and I think, like Jay said, the Panthers do have experience. I'm taking the Panthers in this one, 28-14, and I think Carson Strong and Josh Love are going to split time in the center. They both get equal playing time. I like Curtis Johnson, but I like Mike Nolan better. So,
I think my thing with this game here is the Houston Gamblers are my San Antonio Brahmas of the USFL. Like, they're such a wild card. You just don't really know what you're going to get with them. I love Curtis Johnson, but he came on at such a late time. He came in way later in the process than when Mike Nolan did with Michigan. So there, and I know it was still before camp, but it's still a disadvantage, I feel like, coming in that much later compared to some of the other coaches that we saw. Like Curtis Johnson, but he doesn't have a ton of experience as a head coach. So Mike Nolan obviously gets the heads up on that as far as that's concerned. And Mike Nolan also has a longer, career, I would imagine, or say across the board, than Curtis Johnson, though Curtis Johnson has been on some pretty nice staffs. Josh Love having the advantage of being with Michigan. Kenji Bahar was with Houston last year. I think it's going to come down to which system is drastically different. And Houston lost a ton of coaching, whereas Michigan, like you said, is returning their offensive coordinator. So I give every edge in this factor to Michigan, and I, unfortunately for Houston fans, I don't think this week one is going to be very close. I think Michigan is going to kind of dominate this game until Curtis Johnson and this team can kind of mesh and get the chemistry together. I know that Michigan wasn't very good last year. You guys had 3 wins last year? 2 wins? 3?
Gamblers with 3, Panthers with 2, yeah.
Yeah, Panthers with 2. I think the Panthers will take a much better leap forward this year, and they're going to get off on the right foot here. I think this game's going to be like a 24-10 type game, unfortunately for the Gamblers, but until I can see more from them and they can kind of become cohesive, that's where I'm at there. The last game on the docket is the Pittsburgh Maulers, who were kind of the meme of the USFL last year, and my New Orleans Breakers in New Orleans, in Birmingham. Jake, where are your thoughts on this game?
This one is kind of my biggest toss-up. Maulers, kind of like Panthers, they have, they can only go up from last year. I think that is, kind of the least with getting 1 win over the Gamblers last year. Maulers have a brand new head coach. Horton seems a lot more stable in this, a lot more capable than what we ever saw out of Wilson. They don't have a returning quarterback, and that was one of the things I kind of hinge on, like where I feel that a quarterback is or that a team's going to be. But Breakers are kind of in the same boat with not having Sloter. But I'm probably going to go with Breakers on this one. No other reason other than I think that they just have the stronger offensive firepower. They have Dixon, they have Adams, they have they have Diggs, they have Cheek or Glass, or MBT. Throw any one of those in there, and they're very much capable of being a starter in the USFL. I think that gives them the edge.
Chris, your thoughts on this one? Does Pittsburgh new color scheme, which you're wearing tonight? Like, are you?
Yeah. So, and the Breakers have a huge edge, in my opinion. With Nick Lee, Bethel Thompson, obviously coming down from the CFL. The last time he played outdoor football, I believe, was in the spring league. Back when he played, so I think he has experience. He knows the system. They got two other great quarterbacks behind him, with David Cheeks and Akil Glass. I'm excited about Akil Glass. I think we get to see him at some point in some capacity, his running ability. So I like James Morgan. I think he's okay. Realistically, I think that's the. I'm not high on the Marlins, to be honest. And that's
I just love the way you said that. I like James Morgan. I think he's okay.
I think
Meh.
okay. Yeah, I mean, they're nothing special, Like, I think we often get kind of confused what a guy can do in college versus the guy at the pro level, and this is the pro level. So, I take the Breakers winning this game. I think it's going to be almost a blowout, honestly. 33-14 Breakers.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right. I think New Orleans, and this might be a little bias in here. I try not to be biased in my analysis of stuff, but I think New Orleans might have the best 3-man quarterback group in the league. Because I think, Jake, you said it, I think all 3 of these guys could possibly be starters in the USFL at some point here in the near future. The thing with Akil Glass and Davis Cheeks is they're both basically rookies. Because they're even though they were last year's class, they were in the NFL. They didn't make it, and they're coming to the USFL now. In the second year that they're out of college, so they didn't really have any like real major playing time with the NFL. So they're basically rookies. So McLeod Bethel Thompson brings an experience edge. I mean, he's been all over the place. We just got done interviewing him as well. This is going to be a tale of Coach Flip versus Coach Horton, which are both, I think, going to be fantastic coaches for this league. James Morgan's a relative unknown, and I feel that James Morgan is that rookie for Pittsburgh, because I don't believe he's had a ton of experience elsewhere. That off the top of my head that I can think of. So I'm going to go New Orleans here, and I'm going to say 28-13. I don't think it's going to be close, Chris, but I don't know if it's going to be as big of a blowout as you have it as. So, yeah. Jake, we're going to run down XFL. I don't know if you've been watching the XFL or not. Do you want to stick around for a little bit of the predictions here in a minute? It sounds like we got Sam on the phone here real quick, though. Sam, you with us?
Yes, sir.
Oh, look at that. There's a voice that's missed sometimes, I guess, maybe.
Yes, sir.
Sometimes. Ouch.
Well, Sam, we got you on the phone. What are your thoughts, man? What's going on?
I just wanted to apologize, first of all, for my absence. Obviously, my day job likes to get in the way of my, I guess you could say, my passion. But I figured I would still drop by and give my opinions on a couple things while I had you guys.
Sounds good. What's on your mind? What do you got going for us?
Which game are you guys talking about?
Well, we just got done running. We just got done running down all 4. So why don't we just start with you? You can just give us a quick little rundown of your thoughts here. We'll just start right back at the top. How about Stars, Showboats? I know you're a Stars fan. Little homerism here.
A little bit, but also, I mean, I try to cut through my bias with some realism here, and I really think that the Stars have a really good roster. And I mean, I don't think that's bias. I think what they were able to do this offseason, as well as bringing back every one of their premier players other than, Freedom, I really think it was a great offseason for us. And I think the Showbots did a lot of good things as well, but I don't quite believe that their offseason really matches up to what the Stars did this year.
You got a score prediction, or did you not think about that?
Let's say
I love putting you on the spot.
Let's say 28-24.
Okay, closer than what you expected. I feel the same way too. How about the New Jersey Generals and the Birmingham Stallions? I think this is going to be the game of the week. I said it a minute ago. I don't know if you heard me or not, but what are your thoughts on that one?
I agree. First of all, this is the game of the week. I mean, a lot of people think this should have been the championship last year, if we're being honest. And if it weren't for a late Luis Perez interception, it probably would have been. But I think the Generals are arguably the best team in the North, even with Philadelphia there. So I personally think that Birmingham is going to pull this game out, but I think they're going to have a really, really tough matchup. I just really don't know what to think about DeAndre Johnson as a quarterback quite yet. We didn't get to see enough of him last year. So I probably lean toward Birmingham there.
I think you just made our Michigan Panthers fan upset here, saying that New Jersey is the best team in the North.
That's
Speaking
fair.
speaking of the Michigan Panthers, they play Houston. Is I don't know. I don't know if you've been listening or if you've been able to listen or not, but nobody here really thinks highly of Houston right now at this moment, just because of all the changes that's happened. Are you in that same boat especially with this game?
100% I am. I just think, like, I briefly caught what you said about Curtis Johnson coming in late, and I think that's a really big deal. Had he been able to start a little bit earlier with the team, maybe we have a little bit more faith in this. But the other thing about this is they really didn't do much at quarterback. We watched every other team bring in guys, and reality, Houston all they did was make the trade, I believe, for Montel Cozart, if I'm not mistaken. And really,
Nope,
to me,
you're
that
right.
if you look at the quarterback rooms across the USFL, that is probably the weakest quarterback room of any in the league. So I'm very interested to see how this works out. I was a big Kenji Bahar supporter last season. I wanted to see him get time because I'm an Eagles fan, so I knew what we were getting in Clayton Thorson. But I'm also very excited about Bahar as an athlete. I think that he brings plus athleticism to the position, and he can really be a game breaker if you allow him to take the game over.
They're my San Antonio Brahmas of the USFL this year.
Definitely.
I said that earlier. Like,
I'm excited for Trey Wilson from Kentucky. I don't know if he'll get playing time. He's not really much of a passer, but I hope we can see him run around a couple times. That would be fun.
you never know. I mean, we already had 20. We talked about it earlier. There's been 20 XFL starting quarterbacks. I mean, we easily could see that in the USFL too. Sam, just to round out real quick, we'll move on to the XFL schedule here. The Pittsburgh Maulers at the New Orleans Breakers. What are your thoughts on this one, considering Pittsburgh coming off a 1-win season?
Well, I do want to start this off by saying that Pittsburgh is dramatically improved over last year. I do not think they will be anywhere near one win this season. But at the same time, New Orleans and what they've done this offseason, I really expect them to be a good team once again. They might be the second or third best team in the league right now. It's going to be a competition between them, New Jersey, Birmingham, and Philadelphia again, I really think. And as much as I hate to say it, because I don't want to see a complete repeat of last year's playoffs.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't think anybody really wants to either. So you think New Orleans is going to get this one, though?
Yes, I do. And as far as a score prediction, I would say probably New Orleans 35-21.
Oh, okay. So you're in that Krish territory, walking around there in that one. All right. So let's jump to week 9 of the XFL season. We're getting the winding down here. There's been 2 teams eliminated. We're pretty clear on what we see. We have one team 2 teams that have clinched, because I think Houston clinched too last week with their victory in some capacity. I don't think, they won the South, right? Because I don't think they can lose it now, right?
Yeah, they can lose the
You are
South.
correct, I believe.
They can still lose the South?
They are locked. They have their playoff berth, but I believe they still could be the second seed.
Okay. All right. I mean,
But I could
Arlington
be
has
wrong.
to get through DC this week, I believe, for that to happen. So
Yep.
Houston has a chance to wrap up the conference this week. I mean, they start off. Let's start off there. They actually start off the games this week. Vegas at Houston. Jake, is this going to be where Houston doesn't even put it in the hands of Arlington and just goes out there and beats Vegas, or does Vegas play spoiler?
I mean, Houston's 0-3 against the North. the North
Yeah.
reigns supreme in this, and I don't know. Vegas is a different team with McClendon under center, so I'm gonna go ahead and say Krish and Sam, your Vipers get the win over the Pretenders in the Roughnecks. I don't believe in the Roughnecks.
Krish, are you gonna be the homer pick here and go with the Vegas over Houston here at this point, or?
You already know I was on the phone with my boy yesterday, and he was talking to me how about good they've been looking in practice. I know I say that every week, but this week is different. Houston, I mean, their passing attack has gone from the best to the worst really quick. I don't know if we see Cole. I think we see Cole McDonald on the center. I found it very interesting that last week they switched him out. Mid during the overtime, they switched him out. I thought they would keep Silvers the whole overtime period, but that was really interesting. On the second series, they put McDonald back in. So McDonald will probably get to start. I got Vegas winning this game 28-25, and I have to mention that the odds for this game are plus 330. So those are really good odds. I mean, I would take those in a heartbeat, to be honest.
I'm sure you would. Sam, you still with us? I think so. I hear wind. I'm assuming that's
Yes,
you.
I am. Sorry, I was
I don't think
trying
anybody
to
else is near.
be quiet there.
What about you? You think Vegas? I mean, let's face it. Houston had a really rough week last week with San Antonio. Almost lost that game. Probably should have lost that game if San Antonio actually knew how to play call inside the 5-yard line. But do you think that Vegas, plays spoiler here? And like Jake said, does the North just sweep Houston under the rug? Don't know if he realized he muted himself. Are you with us, Sam?
But
I think he's in the car.
yeah, can you hear me okay?
Hey, he's in the car. I got you now. Okay. What are your thoughts on that, Sam?
So basically, I personally think Houston's going to pull this one out. With their playoff hopes on the line, I don't see them faltering here. Wade Phillips has had some issues throughout this season, but I think Vegas's issues have been bigger by a long shot. And I just right now don't have a lot of faith in Vegas, unfortunately.
I think the key to this game is Houston's pass rush being as good as it is, because this Vegas offensive line has struggled a lot throughout the course of the season. It's been one of the weaker offensive lines in football. I still think Vegas might be a better team than 3 out of the 4 in the South. The Roughnecks, I think, might just edge them a little bit just because of that defense. And I think Houston's going to not let this game get out of their way with Vegas, and I think Houston's going to win this game probably 22-19, but I think it's going to be close, like the game against San Antonio was last week for sure. And speaking of San Antonio, 2 teams that have been eliminated. Well, no, San Antonio technically hasn't been eliminated yet, but I think it's pretty close. Orlando is at San Antonio to close out the Saturday slate. Jake, what are your thoughts on this? And maybe we see a new quarterback under center for Orlando, just to kind of give some guys some playing time.
I mean, might as well. You are, they're not playing for the playoffs anymore. I think the win over DC was a bit of an aberration. I don't have faith in either San Antonio or Orlando, but considering that San Antonio still can earn their spot in the playoffs, I think that they show up and do enough to get this win here to carry them to week 10.
Chris, are you on the San Antonio gets pushed into the, if possible, makes it a playoff run here?
I mean, I think that's the only choice in this game, to be honest. San Antonio, I have to go with them. I think I won't even be watching this game, to be honest. Like, such a bad game. But I got San Antonio winning this game 21-18 in my opinion.
I will say that this is one of the 2 games that do overlap between the XFL and USFL season this year. Other than that, the scheduling is actually pretty well leveled out that you can try to catch most of the games, but this one does overlap with the Saturday night USFL game. It has a half-hour start time ahead of it. just for those that are curious. Sam, if you're still with us, Orlando at San Antonio, what are your thoughts on this game?
As much as I don't want to, I got to give it to San Antonio. Orlando, after last week, has lost all my faith. I really thought Quentin Dormady was on a roll there. I really thought that he was going to turn this franchise around and bring them into the playoffs. But unfortunately, that game eliminated them. So, like you guys said, I throw it as I see what I got. We've already seen every other quarterback on the roster. What do you have to lose at this point? As far as the score prediction, I'd say 24-18 San Antonio.
24-18 San Antonio. You guys have way more faith in San Antonio's offense than I do. If Quentin Dormady is under center for this game, Orlando is going to win this game, and it's probably not going to be close. It's going to actually surprise people. San Antonio's offense has been the second worst offense behind Arlington all season long, and they only scored 15 points last week against Houston. Now I know that their defense kept them in that game, but I feel that if Dormady is able to bounce back from the game that he had last week and doesn't let it get underneath him and shoot his confidence, that the Guardians were they were averaging almost 20, I think it was like 24 points a game during the stretch that when they up to lead beating DC. So I think Orlando is going to win this game if Dormady's under center. If they do try somebody else, I think San Antonio wins. I know it's a little bit of a cop out, like as far as a prediction is concerned. I'll lock in my official prediction as Orlando 24-13. But I could see San Antonio winning if they don't put Dormady under center. Jake, Arlington at DC. There's probably not a whole lot to say about this game, but I know the DC locked up a playoff spot. They probably locked up the North, or they're very close to locking up the North. What are your thoughts? Actually, I think they locked up the North, didn't they?
Nope. They can lock up the North with a win to tomorrow or on Saturday, or a Seattle win over the Battlehawks.
How does St. Louis get a chance to win the North? I'm confused by that because the head-to-head DC swept them.
Well, because DC has a loss, so if they lose the next two, they could end up 7-3.
That's true. Yeah,
so they would have the overall
sorry.
record. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, that makes sense. Then sorry about that. I forgot about the 2 games left on that one. Okay, all right. Anyways, thoughts on that? Arlington and DC here. Does DC wrap it up?
Well, oh yeah. Looks like Mike Mitchell just tweeted a few minutes ago that DC is about sold out. They just have a few hundred tickets left, so DC crowd is going to be in it, and they could lock up the North with the win here. So. Yeah, no, I think Sunday at noon, DC is going to come out, and I don't think it's gonna be all that close. DC wins easy.
Yeah. Chris, you on the DC train finally? You smack talked them all season long for the most part. Are you finally on this train now?
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah. I think I have to pick DC in this game. I think this would be a perfect opportunity to see my boy Kelly Bryant down there. I probably Kelly Bryant won't be active again, unfortunately, because the system works, in certain ways. But I think that DC has a pretty good stranglehold. I think they got back on track this past week. I'm liking what I'm seeing. I really am. My boy Santos Ramirez is down there, so I think Te'amu has really found his footing leading this team. I think we saw this past week why De'Aaron King hasn't gotten, is not the starter. He proved that this past week. 3 straight overthrows in a row to the same receiver. It's pretty obvious that what I said about him not being able to pass came true. But no, I think DC wins this game really easily, 35-14 in my prediction.
Sam, is DC wrapping up this week with a victory over Arlington?
DC wraps up the North this week. There's no doubt in my mind that Arlington does not have the offense to keep up with DC, and DC's running game is going to run all over Arlington's defense after the news that Donald Payne is done for the year. He was the main heart of their run defense, and that dude is an unbelievable middle linebacker, in my opinion. So losing him's a huge blow, and DC was already the way overmatched victor of this game before that news. So I definitely am kind of excited to see this one. I think it might actually turn into a blowout, and we might see a little bit more De'Aaron King than we have in the past, which would be awesome. But regardless, DC's taking this one. Would not shock me to see them score over 30 points. I would probably guess fairly similar to Chris's assumption, 35 to about 15 points.
Arlington's offense is god awful horrendous, and I've been preaching it all year. If anybody who's listening has heard me say anything, Arlington's offense is awful, and it's not going to change. I think 15 points is the highest that they've scored on offense. I believe, and I could be wrong about that too, because I think their 15-point game might have been there might have been a pick six or a fumble six in there as well. If anybody can correct me on that, but I'm pretty sure that their offensive output has been horrendous. DC's going to win this game pretty handedly, and I think we actually see Eric Dungy finally under center. I think it's going to be that big of a blowout that we could see Dungy play a little bit in the fourth. Chris, I kind of agree with you, but I kind of disagree with you a little bit about De'Aaron King in the throwing aspect of it, because the dude really put up a ton of numbers at Houston. And he's proven he can throw the ball. It's just there is definitely some issues with height, obviously trying to be able to see over those big offensive linemen, and his release point has always been kind of an issue. So I would like to see King get a chance to throw the ball a little bit more. So maybe we'll see that happen if Tiamu comes out and it's a halftime. This game's like 28-0 or 28-3 or something. But I don't think this is going to be close, and DC gains home field advantage for the North here. And the last game on the docket, the game of the week for the XFL, this will be in contention here with the USFL's Generals and Stallions. Oh, and I want to mention real quick, Arlington Renegades DC Defenders is the second game that overlaps with the USFL. Both those games start at 12 o'clock on Sunday. I know which game Jake will be watching, only because it's probably going to be a little more exciting than this game, the Arlington game. But they will close out the week with Seattle and St. Louis, which is the XFL game of the week. Jake, what is your thoughts on this one and predictions as well?
Well, I know how I feel about this game, and as much as I want Seattle to win, I don't think they're going to. I don't think they're going to go to the Battle Dome and get the dub. I think St. Louis is going to lock up their number 2 seed, because DC is going to run all over Arlington, so they'll lock up number 1. St. Louis will get their number 2, and are they without McCurran this week again, or is he going to be back? Do we know?
He should be back this week. Tianu was a precaution start for St. Louis last week.
Then I think if McCarron's back, especially, I think St. Louis can handle business at home again with Seattle. I don't think Seattle, their magical 5-game win streak, it came to an end last week, and I think that's going to take a little bit out of their sails, and I don't know if they can get back up and to beat St. Louis at home.
Chris, are you on this? Seattle's magic is over, and they're going to go back-to-back losses here in St. Louis?
No, I got Seattle winning this game, actually. I like Seattle a lot. I think AJ is going to come back a little bit slow from his injury. I like Danucci. I like what he can do in this matchup. I think he's been very shaky this whole year, and I really wish that we were able to see Harrison Frost at some point, but unfortunately, I don't think that will ever be the case.
Well, fingers crossed for next year.
Next year, yeah, hopefully. But I think Danucci gets it done, and Philip Lindsay, I think, is going to be a little more comfortable. I think since he came in last week, midweek, having a full week under his belt with the offense, I think he's going to be ready to go. I got Seattle winning this game 21-14.
Okay, Sam, are you on the Seattle's magic is run out bandwagon as well?
I think he left.
Did he go? He bounced? Okay. Sam is no longer with us, so I look like an ass. For me, it's tough here, because so Benanucci threw a red zone pick again last week. It wasn't really his fault, but it came off a turnover, and you got to be able to protect the ball. And St. Louis is very good at getting turnovers. The defense is a lot more stout than people realize. In St. Louis, with a playoff spot on the line, like Jake was saying, that Battle Dome is going to be insane. I don't think Seattle is going to have enough, unfortunately, for them, because their story has been good. And let's face it, I mean, if they were in the South, they probably wrap up that conference. But they're gonna probably end this season at 6-4 and miss the playoffs, while the team that wins the South is going to be 6-4 and make the playoffs. So,
As the number 1 seed.
yeah, as the number 1 seed, because most likely the number 2 seed is going to have either a 500 record or a losing record, one or the other, which is pathetic in its own right. That's beside the point. Yeah, I think St. Louis is going to win this game. I think it's going to be closer than maybe some people are predicting, but I still think it's going to be a big enough margin that it never really feels in danger. I'm going to say St. Louis 27 and Seattle 21 on that front. And that wraps us up with the predictions. Chris, what else we got on the slate here?
I believe.
Jake. Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on 1 second. Jake, if you want to stick around for the rest of the show, you're more than welcome. If you want to head out, you are more than welcome to head out. We appreciate having you on, and it's been fun hearing your thoughts and stuff coming from a outsider, but you're more than welcome to stick around if you'd like to. It's up to you.
No, it's getting late. Got work in the morning, so I appreciate you guys having me on, and hopefully we can do this again soon.
Sounds good, Jake. Appreciate you. Have a good night, man.
Appreciate it. Thanks. You too. Have a good one.
Chris, what else we got here?
The next thing on docket is my favorite part. I've been waiting for this all show. My Massachusetts Pirates starting the Anthony Russo at quarterback. I'll start with this first. Man, Anthony Russo is the real deal. He comes as advertised. I'm shocked San Antonio to keep him. I think there has to be something more to that. Maybe personal, whatever, with the coach or whatever. But he's the real deal. The improvements that he made during the game, he started off slow and he was able to get back into it, and the confidence he came in with only 2 days of practice, he's throwing 4 touchdowns. I'm really, really excited to see what he can do for the rest of the year. If he even will be here for the rest of the year, I could see a situation where he plays 1 or 2 more games and then moves up to the USFL. But I think he's legit. I really do, and we're excited to have him here for sure.
I think the biggest thing here with Anthony Russo is what exactly did happen down in San Antonio that caused him to be released. Was it his choice, or because he found out that he wasn't going to be the starter and he chose to do that? Or was it the fact that they just thought that Jack Cohn and, Reed Sinnett were better? That's the biggest question I think that surrounds this. I was actually surprised that Russo didn't get a shot at the USFL, after he was released from the XFL, especially considering you look at some of the quarterback rooms at the USF level. You know what I mean? So I don't know if the USFL will poach him, though. If Benefield comes back off short-term IR and gets the starting job back in Mass, Russo may ask to seek, or may seek other opportunities with the USFL and just kind of be like, I'm done. Especially if injuries start occurring and we start seeing some of these rosters kind of dwindle at the quarterback spot. You know what I mean? I think Russo's talented enough to get a chance to play at the USFL level, but it's been fun watching him so far in the IFL. So I think it's a big win for the IFL. Massachusetts loves doing this. We all know that. They love bringing in those names and rocking around with that. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with him. And I know that you're a Mass fan and you hope that he sticks around, especially if Benefield doesn't return to form. But yeah, that's where I'm at with Russo, basically.
Definitely, no, I agree with you. I think Anthony is very talented, and he was talented at Temple, and I think he has a great future ahead of him. So the next thing is kind of similar. Is quarterback Chase for Cade. He was the projected backup in with the Maulers. He was fighting for the starting job. He got released. Um, our sources tell us that he's in talks with a couple CIF teams, Champions Indoor Football League. For those of you who don't know, we covered that too. We have weekly shows. I covered the Southwest Florida Storm, and so I find this very interesting because this is an individual who just got released from his Maulers, and now he's a free agent and he's in talks with a couple CIF teams. That's very interesting to me. So, Michael, I want to start with you. Like, what do you think of that?
Well, I mean, everybody knows, anybody that knows me as far as football is concerned, I'm a very big supporter of guys if they get released, from a certain aspect, looking elsewhere to play, whether it's CFL or the ELF or even the LFA now down in Mexico. But I'm also a big supporter of these indoor leagues. I think that Kurt Warner's story is a story that should resonate with a lot of quarterbacks, that there is gems that can be found in some of these leagues. I kind of wish, and it's not really an offense to the CIF at all, because I do like the CIF, but I really wish that it was more on the NAL or IFL level, that he was kind of looking, because I feel like those are probably going to bring more eyes necessarily than the CIF, as far as game tape and stuff is concerned. Not saying that CIF guys aren't talented or worthy of moving up or anything like that, but I just don't know if the eyes are as prominent on that product over the other two. Sam, you can correct me if I'm wrong with that. I do hear wind blowing, so I'm assuming you're back with us now that you have reception, or back to where you are. But do you kind of agree with that assessment a little bit, that the IFL and the NAL have a little more eyes on them than the CIF?
Yes and no. NAL, no. IFL, yes. NAL, for whatever reason, only seemed to put one or two players in the USFL this past year, which I thought was very surprising. I've talked about it before, but I think the conditioning level of players in the NAL is a higher level than any other league because they often play two ways. You also get a chance to evaluate every single player at two different positions. So I'm not really sure why teams aren't looking that direction, but we've only really seen a couple guys out of there. Whereas
Okay.
the CIF has had guys like Deterian Evans, Dominic Logan, and I know a lot of these guys have ended up released and back in the CIF. But in terms of the USFL specifically, I think Chase is making the right decision for himself because I think that his goal is to be in the USFL. I don't know
Okay.
why that league specifically, but they've had a good track record of signing CIF players.
No, that's fair. I think I only mentioned the NALs because but now that you said that, I think a lot of the reasons why we're not seeing a lot of that translation also is because of the playing style. It
Yeah,
doesn't really translate to the outdoor game as much there, so
yeah,
that does make sense.
definitely. I do want to add Chase Cade was in the NAL. He was with the Columbus Lions. He was actually the backup to Mason Espinoza. For those of you who don't know, Mason Espinoza is considered one of the greatest arena football quarterbacks of all time. So Chase Cade would back him up. Maybe that's part of the hesitancy to go back to the NAL.
That's possible, yeah, for sure.
But I think that it's good. I mean, finding a place to play is always good. It's better than obviously sitting at home, going somewhere. And for these guys, I think it's important, even though they were released, they still were in the system. So if there's injuries or anything comes up, who are the first guys the team going to be calling? Guys who they had during training camp.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think it's important for a lot of these guys that they got in the system, and now people know them. So that's the real big thing.
Great point, Krish. I think you're 100% right on that. I think the opportunities for these guys to go up and network are huge. They're huge. They're invaluable because you never know, like you said, when one injury happens at a quarterback position and they go and say, well, hey, Chase Forcade is down there in the CIF. He's balling. He's healthy. We know that he's ready to, he's in playing shape. Let's bring him up. He's going to be a solid quarterback for us. We know he's already been in a USFL system. We know he knows what it's like. So why not? I mean, that's a perfect point. And I think that one reason we don't see Chase back in the NAL, I think, is because of the timing of when he was released. The NAL, we recently just saw Jonathan Bain. He went over to the IFL because the lack of positions for him to fill in the NAL, basically a quarterback. So I think that's a big reason why we see 4K looking at the CIF instead of another league. And with the teams that he's looking at, there's a little bit of quarterback upheaval there. So I think that he has a better chance to a starting job, which was obviously very important for him to make this decision.
Exactly. I also want to add one thing is that, 4K, he had a successful career in college at Nicholls State. And I think that the NAL is very, very interesting, where a lot of their quarterbacks are arena quarterbacks. Quarterbacks that fit arena perfectly and that won't necessarily translate to outdoors all the time. The IFL is more of an outdoor style game. And I think that for Cade, maybe could have been very successful in the IFL if he decided to go there. But like you said, I mean, when you wait for your opportunity, that's the most important. We saw it with Vegas, the Nighthawks. They have a guy, Kalen Hicks, solid couple of games. He got the call today to the CFL. That's their fourth player in a 3-week period to get called to the CFL. So, stay ready for your opportunity is the biggest thing, I would say.
100%. 100%. And I think what you said about the NAL is very apt. I think that they do have a different style of play. So the players that are successful there aren't necessarily going to be successful or as successful outdoors. So that was a great point. Not to mention, we've talked about it before, the NAL doesn't have a salary cap. So a lot of these guys that are top end players in the NAL are making really good money for indoor football terms. So, I mean, for that, I think there's a big reason why a lot of guys want to play in the NAL if they're not in these other leagues. But realistically, like I said, I don't know it's the best way to showcase yourself.
I think one of the other things is when we've talked about numerous times is translation. Like even in the outdoor game, translating from the CFL to the USFL or to the XFL is not the same. The XFL play style might be better suited that it may not translate to the NFL, where the USFL may translate better to the NFL even. So I think that you see that as well. So I think the playing style with the NAL in comparison to the IFL and CIF, which mimic more of the outdoor game, I think plays a big part into a lot of stuff, into a lot of decision making and talents as well. I love Avril Nelson. Avril Nelson was a guy that I watched with the Washington Valor, and I couldn't understand why he wasn't a more prominent member in the IFL as a league leader in quarterback play or whatever else for a long time. And it's just he's in the NAL basically playing the same style that the AFL had. So, and like you said, there's no salary cap, so maybe he's getting paid more or whatever it may be, being with the Gunslingers this year, because I think it's his first year there. The translation is just going to be right for you. You got to figure it out as a player where you're best suited at. So yeah, I mean that's a great point as far as what you were saying, Chris, with having the USFL being in camp and then going to a league that kind of suits a little bit more what the outdoor game does, for sure.
So as we wrap up here, you guys have any last thoughts or questions or concerns?
I did want to mention that Thaddeus Moss, the son of Randy Moss, signed with the Birmingham Stallions at the tight ends position. A sign that I actually missed originally the first time. It was Sam that brought it to my attention. He bounced around a little bit on NFL squads. He had a few years up there, so I think that's a big get, especially if he gets an opportunity and chance to kind of showcase his talents. I don't know what the adjustment period will be for him, though, signing a little bit later into camp, but he was pretty talented at LSU. So I was a little bit surprised he kind of went undrafted there in the year he came out. It'll be very interesting to see what happens with him, but hopefully he can put together a good tape and showcase what he can do in Birmingham. Sam, you got something
I
you want
actually,
to say? So yeah, okay.
yeah, I wanted to add something to that. I personally think that Thaddeus Moss is a perfect example of an alternative football player. He
Yep.
only really played in 2 seasons of college. His freshman year, then he had to sit out a season due to transferring to LSU, and then he was injured, missed the whole season in 2018, played all of 2019, set franchise or school records in receptions and yardage, and then went into the draft, and then went undrafted, signed with a couple teams, like you said, hasn't ever really played in games. He ended up getting injured the one time he got called up from the practice squad. So now this is his opportunity to actually play and play against like level competition to where he can showcase that he belongs in the NFL. But there was also one piece of information that literally just came out a little bit ago that I wanted to get touch on. An offensive tackle from the Philadelphia Stars that was just released, Dare Rosenthal, has been signed by the DC Defenders. And I wanted to
Yeah.
point this out because I will tell you right now, within 3 seasons, this guy will be in the NFL. I guarantee it. And it's because of the way that he transitioned from defensive line his first season in college. He was a redshirt freshman, never played offensive line before, moved to offensive line, barely played as a sophomore at guard, moved to tackle, played 2 seasons at tackle, and then left school. And basically hasn't played since then. So I really thought he was going to be good in Philadelphia. He got cut. I think this is a really, really good signing for DC because now they can develop him not only for the next 2 weeks, but over this offseason if he doesn't get an NFL offer. And that is huge because that's exactly what this guy needs to make it to the next level.
Yeah, I actually just broke across not too long ago, and I thought a lot of the same things as far as the ability for him to come in and give not only DC some depth. I mean, it's only a few games left in the year, but I mean, you're talking an opportunity and chance to make an impression with week 9, 10, the championship conference game, and then the championship game, most likely. So he has a chance to put on some good tape for four games. I'm just curious as to whether or not he slides immediately into a starting role. That's the only thing I'm curious about. He's talented enough to, and I like him a lot. I'm just curious to see if that's how DC is going to do it, or if they're going to ease him in.
Yeah. I
I
think.
would imagine that he's going to be a depth piece.
Yeah, I can see that. I agree. I definitely see where you're coming from with that. I think honestly, he probably starts as maybe backup, but then he works his way in. He reminds me a lot of the basketball fans here, Scottie Pippen Jr. with the Lakers, right? He didn't really get that much playing time. Son of a, Hall of Famer. I think that he's using this opportunity because he has, like Sam said, he has the talent to move up to the next level. So this is a great opportunity for him to go out there and prove himself. And then to the offensive lineman signing with DC, this is really smart on his part. There's DC probably has about 3, 4, maybe even 4 games left, depending on how they do in the playoff hunt. I think that honestly, this guy could play 4 games, and then maybe if the Stars have a hole, in the offensive line mid-season, he could always go back there and get a total of, maybe 8, 9 games under his belt and, put together a solid film in 2 different leagues. I think that would be really great.
Just so everybody's on the same page, in order for him to go back to the Stars, he would have to be released. The XFL learned from the USFL's mistake, and they will hold rights of played into next season.
Yeah, the rights will stay with the XFL. He'd have to be outright released in order to go to the USFL. So that would be the only thing that would be that would hold that up as far as that's concerned. What do we got? That's it. We got the CFL on tap here soon, starting. The ELF starts in June. For anybody that's wondering or cares about learning different leagues there. Other than that, I don't think we have anything else, do we? Anybody else have any final notes?
I want to give a shout out to one of my co-hosts, Travis Lean. He got the biggest fight of his life on Saturday. Y'all can tune into that. The link will probably be up on Instagram or Twitter somewhere. So, go support him and, on his quest to go to the UFC. That's the first step in that. So that should be exciting. And also the Frisco Fighters and the Massachusetts Pirates on Saturday night at 8 o'clock. That's always one of the best rivalries in sports, in my opinion. So tune into that. A lot of fighting in that. It should be a great show. Have that up with the USFL game. I'll be watching both. I'll probably be watching just the Pirates game and then the USFL game on my phone. But I'm excited. I'm really excited for a great week of football. We got football every day. All these different games. We got 3 IFL games on Saturday, 3 IFL games on Sunday. 2 NAL games on 3 NAL games on Saturday, 1 NAL game on Sunday. I believe we also have 1 CIF game on Sunday too. So we have football every hour. So lock in, enjoy it, and try not to make your wives mad. Luckily I'm not married, so I don't have to deal with that.
So much football. LFA is back this week too, on top of all that. So, oh man, I'll be going into Wednesday next week, catching up on stuff.
100%. It's going to be so hard to try and catch all the games this week. But I have to say, like, the people who really win here with all these leagues, the players and the fans, right? Because we have constant football and players have nothing but options. I mean, we just talked about Darren Rosenthal. Dude was cut 3 days ago by the Stars, and DC's already signed him. That in itself, right there, is exactly why we should all root for the XFL and the USFL to succeed. So players have a chance to really develop into what they can be. Because I honestly believe that if these leagues succeed and they continue to stick around, we're only going to see the NFL get better because players that never would have developed in the NFL get a chance to develop in the USFL and the XFL and might turn into greats that we never would have seen before.
One more thing also. Don't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're good.
The DC Defenders are close to selling out on Sunday. So
yep. I just wanted to mention real quick, Sam, and I'm not 100% sure if you even realize this or not, but the LFA was actually just featured on an ESPN article about how their structure and balance inside that league is going to lead to possibly developing NFL players for the future, because of how they're implementing whatever executive side of things down there is concerned, which kind of counterpoints, not counterpoints, but kind of supports your point about we should all be supporting these leagues, even the indoor and arena leagues, because of the importance that it can provide for these players. So I just wanted to mention that the LFA is getting some love. So
that's awesome.
As they should.
Yeah.
It's a good product. I mean, I watch it on mute, but it's a good product.
One thing I want
Sorry, go ahead, Chris.
No problem. One thing I had a question for you guys was, with all these leagues, right? You got 200 plus players coming in for the draft. Is there enough room for all these guys?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, between, with the AFL coming back as well, I mean, that might hurt the NAL, as far as the arena leagues side of things is concerned. I think the IFL and the CIF are going to be okay. But between those leagues alone in America, the USFL, the XFL, the CFL, the ELF, which is gaining a lot of momentum. The ELF's only 3 years old. They already got 18 teams. So I mean, they're doing things right over there, and now the LFA is getting some love, and it's getting some love on the mainstream level here in America. There's plenty of room. The NFL has always been the thing with the NFL has always been it's always been just the NFL. Nobody's ever wanted to give anybody else a chance. And if you're sitting behind a guy, not getting reps and not getting into an opportunity, you get the AJ McCarrons of the world. Like these spring leagues are designed for developing people to get to the next level, sure, but I don't think that's the only story that needs to be told. Sam and I have had this conversation numerous times, and when Sam came to me to ask me to be, as part of the Shady Sports Network, or when we talked about me becoming part of it, one of the biggest things that I always said was these players need to just build a brand inside the league that you're in, because there is only so many slots at the NFL level. Sure, the pay is great, and you could sit there on a practice squad and make a ton of money, and but you're never going to show the people your talent. Like AJ McCarron never, he wanted his kids wanted to see him play. That was a big thing for him. So I think that those stories are the stories that you want to see in brand building for these leagues, that are going to help these leagues maintain stability.
100%. 100%. And a really good friend many years ago told me a saying that a lot of people have heard, and it basically make it your own, right? So if you're a player, invest yourself in that league. Invest in making that league better and bigger and more popular, and build yourself into a brand, but also promote the league with yourself. So at that same time, while you grow, the league grows, and the league grows, the pay grows. So at some point, you're going to get to a point where you're making bottom end NFL money anyway if these leagues survive, but we have to keep them surviving. And that's where we, the fans, come into play. That's where the players come into play. That's where the whole package has to be correct. And I think really the XFL and the USFL are doing it right in two different manners. And that's why I think we see a little bit of the tribalism going on, with some people being XFL fans and some being USFL fans. But realistically, both approaches have their merits. Again, at the end of the day, let's all root for the fact that the players have more options than ever. But I did want to touch on one last thing before I get out of here. But I wanted to let everybody know that Friday morning, we'll be dropping an interview with McLeod Bethel Thompson, the starting quarterback from the New Orleans Breakers, the man who just won a 2022 CFL Grey Cup, and the man who also has a story very similar to AJ McCarron. He gets to come back to the United States and play in front of his family and get to spend time with his daughter every day because he's back in the U.S. and he's not in the CFL. So that's another big story, that these leagues are giving opportunity to guys who didn't have a chance to play in front of their own kids, or didn't have a chance to play in front of their family because they were in another country, or, they haven't had a chance to play at all. So, again, just there's so many reasons why these leagues need to exist, and it's only going to make football in general better if they do.
Couldn't have said it better myself, Sam. That's perfect. I believe that's it for the night. Check out these leagues, guys. Don't hesitate. Check them out. You're going to see that there's some good products out there and some good quality players. So, Chris, you got any closing thoughts for us?
No, yeah, great show tonight, and tune in next week. We got more content for you coming. I probably got 2 shows maybe tomorrow with my SWK show, and then I maybe got a player interview coming too. So, stay tuned, stay ready. We got a lot of special things on the way for y'all, and keep sharing with your friends. Get that subscriber count up. Right now, I think we're at 665, something like that. Try to get us to 700. Before the end of the XFL season, and then by playoff time, we can get 50 more. 750s are gold, and we might have a giveaway coming up. So, thank you all for tuning in. Have a great rest of your night, and I will see you next time.
This is Brett, and you're watching Shady Sports Network. Tune in, hit that like button.
You might